Welcome back. All right, so I want to talk about goaltenders who are going to be looking to have bounce back seasons this year, and I've ranked them from who I think are the most likely to the least likely. And there are some repeats from last year. Absolutely, there are. But hey, I'm an optimist. I'm wearing San Jose because there's a name or two of a San Jose goaltender on this list. So that being said, I've also got the excellence down here to show you what the numbers should look like. So goals saved above expected. Saros had 46.7 goals saved above expected this year. Ullmark 42.4 and Sorokin 38.7. In terms of save percentage, Saros a 919, Ullmark a 938, Sorokin a 924. Just using those three as examples of what you're looking for if you're a GM for excellent goaltending. So, starting off at number 15 from the Vancouver Canucks, it's not Demko. It's not Demko because I feel like Demko's numbers were negatively impacted by the start of the season where he was clearly hurt. So, I'm starting things off with a goaltender who right now there's still that chance he's their backup. Spencer Martin. His numbers this past year were not very good. And that's really the case. 23.5 goals saved below expected. So a negative 23.5 in terms of goals saved above expected, and an 871 save percentage. So for Martin, it really was, yes, they overplayed him. If he was the backup for maybe a 10 to 15 game amount, the problem is Demko, of course, would need to play about 60, 65 games to make that work. So Martin's on the board. I was looking for number 15, and I thought, all right, I'll include Martin. You guys can let me know your thoughts on whether or not he makes the team this year. Number 14, and the first time San Jose shows up on this board, and it is Kahkonen. I'm just looking for his numbers, that's all. With Kahkonen, in terms of goals saved above expected, the number was negative 24.6. So this is bad. So now I don't expect San Jose to be a great team this year, but the numbers for Kahkonen were awful. Negative 24.6 goals saved above expected, 883 save percentage. So the numbers overall were not great, and I would hope that Kahkonen's able to get something back this year. So I don't expect San Jose to be very good, but I would like to see the goaltenders recording numbers that are a little bit better than that. Number 13 on the list, and the funny thing is, this goaltender, we'll see how much he plays, and that's Comrie. Now, I don't think Luukkonen needs waivers to go down. So there's the possibility it's Comrie, but he's probably backing up Levi. So Comrie, a negative 6.9 in goals saved above expected. Not a bad, awful number, but he didn't play a lot of games either, and his save percentage is 886. So Buffalo, a team that did have its defensive struggles. In the event the defense is better this year, we'll see if the goaltending follows suit. It is one question mark for Buffalo as to whether or not they're going to be a playoff team this coming season. Number 12, New York Rangers, Shesterkin. I am kidding. Obviously kidding. Kidding. Shesterkin had a very good year. Jonathan Quick, on the other hand, not so much. So this is where the record doesn't matter. His record this year was 16, 15, and 6, but he had an 882 save percentage. Goal saved above expected, a negative 617.2. Again, the positive, Saros 46.7. The negative with Quick, negative 17.2. Shows you the difference between the elite and the ones that were struggling this past season. So yeah, for Jonathan Quick, he'll be looking to bounce back with the Rangers. The good news being, of course, playing behind Shesterkin, he'll probably play about 20 games. That should help. And being with a team that apparently he's cheered for a long time, maybe that'll help too. And if you've used this as kind of his last go around, maybe he's a little more relaxed and plays a little better. I thought he was better in Vegas than he was in LA, but still the advanced stats weren't great in Vegas either for Jonathan Quick. Number 11, not Carter Hart. So I put up a Philly logo, and I know people are going to say, oh, he's going to put up Carter Hart. Nah, Hart had a decent year. I don't think Hart needs to bounce back. But Petersen, on the other hand, negative 9.3. Goals saved above expected because he played a lot of the season in the AHL. So that number would be much higher if he had stayed in the NHL this past season. And that save percentage of 868, that's brutal. So the good news is, fresh start with the Flyers. The bad news is the Flyers are in a rebuild. So the odds of Petersen's win total being that high, very low. And Petersen, of course, ended up in the minors this past season in Ontario. His numbers there weren't fantastic either. But again, he's with a new team. He might be motivated to prove that he's worth his contract, or at least somewhat worth his contract. And so maybe Cal Petersen has a bit of a bounce back year for the Philadelphia Flyers. Again, I'm arranging these by the ones that I think are most likely, in my eyes anyways, to have a bounce back. And in number 10, and I'm pretty sure he was on the board last year, 99.9% sure he was on the board last year, and it didn't work out. So I've got him on the board again. It's Elvis. Goals saved above expected, negative 25.9. So, yeah. Save percentage, 876. So if Columbus is going to get back into the hunt for a playoff spot, if they're really and truly going to take advantage of revamping their blue line, the goaltending has to be better. Merzlikins, Tarasov both have to be very good. And Merzlikins this past season just wasn't enough. That negative 25.9 is the highest number of any of the goaltenders on this list. And it's part of what dragged him down. I just look at that number and say, I don't know. I don't know if he can bounce back, if he will bounce back. Because again, it feels like it's more of a pattern now. It's not just a one-off that he's had down stats. So, and with his contract, it's not really a contract that can be traded in the NHL until maybe next summer with the rising cap. But it's still kind of prohibitive. They'd have to retain money. Of course, they let Korpisalo go at the deadline to LA. I think in part because they weren't going to re-sign Korpisalo anyways. Probably wanted Tarasov to get time. But would they rather traded Merzlikins if Elvis wasn't being paid the amount that he was? Maybe. I don't think we'll know. Number 9. A new goaltender for the Detroit Red Wings, coming off of a rough year with San Jose. And who didn't have a rough year in San Jose? Reimer, a negative 11.3 in goals saved above expected. So he's well below the line there. 890 save percentage. Detroit should be in contention for the playoffs this year. A little bit stronger than they were this past season. And so, yeah, Reimer's numbers should get somewhat better. I thought about putting Husso on the list too. I didn't. Spoiler alert, I didn't. Because with Husso, I don't know. I don't know if I would say that, like, did he have a really bad down year? Was Detroit's defense in front of him not great? I know that after the trade deadline, everything just kind of fell apart in Detroit. So I'll put Reimer on the board, but, honorable mention, I guess, to Ville Husso as well. And the former Ville Husso teacher, guy above him, the one that Husso used to be the backup for, Binnington, I've got on this side of the board at 8th. Now, Binnington's a very divisive figure, of course, in hockey. He had a negative 9.2 in terms of his goals saved above expected. 894 save percentage. So, the 894 save percentage, if you want to put that on the defense, you can. The negative 9.2, you can't. The negative 9.2 means that in expected save situations, he underperformed. So, Binnington, I do think there's a good chance that he has a bounce back year. Again, I'm not saying St. Louis is in the playoffs or anything. I'm just saying that for Binnington, the numbers should get at least a little bit better. If they can protect the backdoor plays a little better in St. Louis, that absolutely helps. But Binnington is on the board. Number 7, from Florida, and it's not Bobrovsky, because Bobrovsky had a pretty good year. It's Spencer Knight. Spencer Knight, negative 4.5 in the goals saved above expected department, where Bobrovsky was a positive. He had a 901 save percentage. So Knight's on the board for 2 reasons. One, because he is looking to reestablish himself as the goalie of the future for Florida. And 2, because he's coming out of the player assistance program. And we'll see, how he does and how well he plays. But I do think there's a good chance that he has a strong season for Florida. And that 1-2 punch of him and Bobrovsky could be excellent for them this year. So I have optimism that Knight has a big bounce back year for them. Again, his number would have been higher if not for the fact that he missed a large chunk of the season as it was. Number 6, and I went back and forth on this one, but I'm going to put him on the board because Jake Allen, I think, still has a little bit more to give. The funny thing with Allen is that in the goal saved above expected, he was only a negative 1.9. So his save percentage was 891. His numbers could get better if Montreal shows improvement this year. So that's something that's true of most goaltenders, of course, and just in general, players' numbers get better as the team gets better. Allen, I still think there's something more there. I know that Montembeau is the one that they're kind of seeing as the guy they're going to keep long term. But Allen could be motivated this year, to show what he can do, and maybe this is his last year in Montreal. So not an awful number. That negative 1.9 is not awful, but I've put him on the board anyways. Number 5, and I went back and forth on this one, but I'm going to explain why. So Philip Grubauer had a very good playoff. Philip Grubauer also watched this season for portions of time as Martin Jones was the starter. Seattle was winning with Jones. So for Grubauer, overall, his goal saved above expected much better, much better than the season before. Negative 0.7, much better. I think the year before, he was like a negative 24 or 25. He was awful. So he was much better this year. His save percentage, .895, which is also better. But again, as an optimist, I think Grubauer can get into the 10, 12, 15, 20 goal range of goals saved above expected. That final year in Colorado, a lot of people look at and say, well, he was behind the Avs, so that made him look better than what he was. I didn't see it that way at all. I thought Grubauer was an excellent goaltender that year, and I still think there's an excellent goaltender there, as we saw in the playoffs. And so I think if he can carry that on into this season, his save percentage should come up, and this should be a positive this year. So again, it's just a matter of, in relation to where I think he probably should be, I've got him on the board at number 5. Not to say he had a bad year, because I don't think he did. Number 4, another San Jose goaltender. So the reason I've got San Jose on the why I'm wearing a San Jose jersey, Blackwood. Blackwood's record was good. So Blackwood from a record perspective, 10, 6, and 2. His goal saved above expected, minus 0.9. So that's not awful. Save percentage of .893, not optimal. But if Blackwood can re-find his mojo from 4 years ago, and I know he's gone through injuries, I know he's gone through a lot, and so it does make it more difficult for him to have that comeback season. But again, optimist, and for Blackwood, I could see that being a positive. Even if San Jose is terrible, even if San Jose is the worst team in the league this coming season, you can still get good goaltending on bad teams. We've had that before. Definitely video worthy too, that is. But yeah, Blackwood, very good goaltender, and I think definitely could have a bounce back with a new organization that could help. Fresh starts, definitely I think can be a help to a goaltender. Number 3. As we continue on with the Pacific, and this is where it got interesting, is when I ranked it all out, and I was like, wow. But it tracks, because the Pacific Division this year, we saw the goaltenders just, in general, not playing very well, and the numbers being pretty poor. So, Markstrom's on the board. In terms of negatives with goal saved above expected, he's only a negative 3.1. But again, with the amount of money he gets paid, with that contract, more is expected of Markstrom. He had an .892 save percentage this year. I think Markstrom can have a comeback. He's done it before. Markstrom is an up and down goaltender, so he's due for a rebound. It does get more difficult because he is getting older, but I do think he can have a rebound season for the Calgary Flames. Number 2, from the Edmonton Oilers, and again, this is the optimism based on one thing, one reason why I would have Jack Campbell on the board. And Jack Campbell's numbers, kind of scary. Negative 18.3 in the goals saved above expected. Save percentage, .888. But I thought that he got better as the season went along. And I thought that in the playoffs, when he got the opportunities here and there, I thought he looked all right. And so I think while Campbell is never going to be a guy who plays 60 games in a season, realistically, he is overpaid, but those numbers are too low. The negative 18.3 to me is just too low, and Campbell's, he's a nice guy, popular guy, and so I'm hoping for a comeback, as I'm sure Oiler fans will be hoping for a comeback too. Skinner should be the starter, Campbell probably the backup, but if he can play 30 to 35 games, I think he can improve both of those statistics. Those are just too low. Number 1, and cue the eye rolling, because again, John Gibson. There are those who believe Gibson's vastly overrated, and I totally get where people like that are coming from. He had a negative 11.5 in terms of the goals saved above expected. His save percentage, .899, which, considering the Ducks, is not awful, right? Like the Ducks, the defense they had, I did the video this year on which team had the worst defense, and it was easily Anaheim. I was halfway through putting that board together, and I'm like, so it's Anaheim. I can just stop and just not do the video and just stand in front of the camera and go, Anaheim's got the worst defense. Cut. But yeah, Gibson, negative 11.5, 899 save percentage. I am a firm believer that John Gibson can be a top 10 goaltender in the NHL. He is not. He's not in that video. Don't worry. Don't get mad yet. Save that anger for when the video goes live. But I do think John Gibson can be better than what his numbers show right now. This past season was a rough one for Gibson, and I think he can have a bounce back next year. But let me know your candidate, who you think is going to have a bounce back year. Which one that I have on the board do you think is, yep, he's going to have a bounce back year? And which one isn't on the board that you would pick? Let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. And yes, goal saved above expected. I get those numbers from moneypuck.com. So if you want to go through some stats and some numbers and charts, they got lots of them. So let me know your thoughts. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.